little Valentine's Day, February ID table. This is a Hydnellum species from Massachusetts, but I thought that it looked like hearts. It might be Peckiae, but I didn't lick it, so I don't know. uh, just that's a reference to, there's maybe a couple species that look similar to this. They probably get called Hydnellum Peckiae, but there may be a difference in the way that the exudate tastes. Okay, so just a few highlights from our INAT group. And just to remind you all, if you want to see that group, you can go into iNaturalist and just start typing in mycological association, and we're the first thing that comes up. And then you can click the observations and see what we've got. So this is from Jeremy George. And I just was so excited when he posted this on INAT, but he also posted it in our Facebook group. So also a shout out to our Facebook group, where about 100 of us are sharing our finds and articles, and definitely a lot of good stuff going on there. So he found this on some kind of conifer wood, and it is a neat little cup fungus. It's very small. So I'm pretty sure that he used some kind of macro lens, or maybe the phone macro function. I'm not sure. Jeremy, if you're on here, you're welcome to chime in. But anyway, he said, so they're only about 5 or 10 millimeters across, and he did a great job of documenting what they looked like. He talked about the inside of them, which is kind of clear whitish color, and he said they have a thick base, and they basically they're hairy everywhere except for the inside of the cup. And this is from Southern Maryland, Leonardtown. So these are two of his photos, just really gorgeous. And you can see whatever they are pretty immature. It looks like, I think you guys can see my pointer. Some of these haven't really even opened up yet, but he did just a fantastic job of capturing, you can even see like the individual hairs, and then here the cross section is always very helpful too. So he posted this. I really didn't know exactly what it was. I was kind of looking at all the different cup fungi that I could find to see if there was a good match, and I didn't have much luck, but he ended up posting it in a great Facebook group called Ascomycetes of the World, and he got some feedback, which actually was the same as what a couple of my friends who I randomly asked about it suggested. And they thought that, perhaps it was an immature Pseudoplectania, maybe to Pseudoplectania nigrella. But, it's very hard to tell. A lot of these beautiful little cups, without microscopy, you can't necessarily get as far as you would like to. But I thought it was a great observation, so I wanted to share it, and just very beautiful. I would be pretty excited to find that. And another cute little cup. So this actually, we had a great turnout for the foray with Ethan Crenson. It was the first weekend, I think, of January, out at Patapsco State Forest or State Park, and a lot of people came. It was a lot of fun. So we got to do more of those. And this is really pretty. Again, it looks like these things are something you might notice, but actually, like, they look only like tiny dots unless you have a good zoom on your camera, or a good hand lens, or a macro attachment. So, here you can see the tiny little yellow cups, and there are a couple notable things about these cups. I'd say, like, this is from Zay Bednash. He did this observation, but I think a lot of us looked at this same stick and probably have duplicate observations. So anyway, you can also see kind of maybe that in addition to the cups, there seems to be like some kind of fuzziness between them, kind of on the wood itself. I don't know if it's apparent to you, like, looking at this, but I'm kind of talking about these Oh, my child just told me to shut up. You can see these fuzzy areas, and that's what we would call the subiculum, which is basically hyphae, or, the long stretchy, fungal cells. And they're just making kind of a mat. Here, it's not like a very thick subiculum. You would say maybe it's like scant, but there is a subiculum. And so, like I said, micro is really often needed to get to species on these things, and sometimes even to get to the right genus. But I did take these home after after the foray. So Zay got much better macro picture, but I was able to find some nice ascospores. So here you have an ascus, which is like, if you want to think of it like a pea, this is the pod, and these are the peas in the pod. Very typical that you would get 8 ascospores per pod, sometimes more though. Like we did find another one called Nischia brumiana, probably saying it wrong, that has 256 spores per ascus, which is really unusual, and it was cool, and I can show that another time. But the notable thing here is, and you may not even be able to see it, but there actually is, like, if you look very closely, a line down the middle, and that is a wall. It's like, you call it a septum, or if there's more than one, you would say, or maybe septa, you call it a septa, I guess. And basically, so these spores are septate, and I don't know if they're fully mature, because I think I looked at other spores too. And so they seem to be like one septate, meaning they only have one wall. And that sets them apart, and it's important for identification. So this is a very old key from, I think, like the 1950s. And, I broke it up into 3 parts, like basically getting to the different parts of the family. So I said, first, we do have a subiculum. So when you start at 1, you would go to 2 because the subiculum is present. And that means that it's not, you may have heard of lachnum or hyalorbia or some of these other things. But here we're in the group Arachnopezziae, because because there is a subiculum present, and the ascospores are always septate. And so, like I said, this is septate. And then here, I don't even, honestly, I'm not sure exactly what, maybe anyone else who knows wants to say what an ectal excipulum is, but I think the spores being 1 to 7 septate is important, and also that the subiculum is kind of scant. So that would put us in the Arachnopezziae. So now we're at the genus Arachnopezziae, and oops, sorry, I didn't go through. So they're kind of telling you what they stained it with, which is fine. I used I think I used fluoxine in my stain. I didn't do it because I read this. I actually just did it because I like fluoxine. It's a really pretty pink color. But yeah, so here you start at 1, and the spores 7 septate at maturity. No, we saw that ours are clearly 1 septate. So we go to 2. And then it's talking a lot about the hairs and what they're doing. But I don't think that the hairs were cemented into teeth like that. It didn't look like that to me. They just seemed like normal hairs. And then you get into how many septae there are, or what septate it is, and it's 1. And so that puts us at 2 here. And then you just kind of get into the size of the hairs and the substrate. But knowing what is in our area, we also talked to Ethan Crenson, who is knows a lot more about this stuff than I do. And he suggested it was probably Arachnopezziae trabinaloides. So that's where we got. You don't have to do this, but I think it's fun. It's definitely fun. I love doing the micro. Got my microscope right here. And it's a fun way to pass the winter, and it's good to practice using keys. And then this is the last one that I'm going to talk about for the night. This is Martin's observation, just gorgeous, really beautiful pink crust. And he knew exactly what it was, because I saw when he put it up on INAT, he immediately ID'd it. And so he must have just seen it before. And to me, I was like, wow, how did Martin ID that? I don't really know it. Stop it. Seriously. I didn't know. I didn't know, I didn't know what it was, but I was curious about it because I saw he had found it and then I found it near my house like a couple days later. So I also used my microscope to take a look at it, and the spores were really cool and pretty. So I picked it kind of because it was cool, but kind of because for Valentine's Day, I thought the pink spores and the pink crust were appropriate. And these spores are neat because I don't know if you can tell where my pointer is, but the spores are almost teardrop shaped, and then they are growing like a secondary kind of spore. And that's like pretty unusual. So it sets it apart. And this is an interesting fungus. So it's strangely a relative of what we're talking about tonight, which is the Cantharellales family. And who would have thought that this pink crust is a sort of not that far off relative of some of those guys. It's kind of interesting. So my 6-year-old would have thought that he knew. Well, I didn't know. So anyway, it's Tulisnella violea probably. And I just to go back, yeah, beautiful Valentine's Day thing. Wow, my dog's whining now too. Everyone's having a ball. So yep, that's it. And just happy Valentine's Day to everybody.